I'd like to welcome everyone to this keynote session of the 2023 Radio Preservation Task Force Conference. My name is John Phan, and I serve as the head of research and programs at the American Folklife Center here at the Library of Congress. Right now, I'm also the acting director of the American Folklife Center, as Nicole Saylor, our actual director, is away. I want to thank the organizers of the conference, all LOC staff who are supporting this event, and my colleagues at the American Folklife Center who have participated in panels so far. Tonight, I have the honor of kicking this event off by telling you about the American Folklife Center before handing the microphone or the podium over to someone very important. The American Folklife Center documents and shares the many expressions of human experience to inspire, revitalize, and perpetuate living cultural traditions. Designated by the U.S. Congress as the National Center for Folklife Documentation and Research, we meet our mission by stewarding archival collections, creating public programs, and exchanging knowledge and expertise. The center's vision is to encourage diversity of expression and foster community participation in the collective creation of cultural memory. Since 1976, when Congress passed the American Folklife Preservation Act, Public Law 94-201 for all of you policy people, and President Ford signed it into law, the American Folklife Center has fulfilled its charge to preserve and present folklife. Over the years, we've coordinated and conducted large-scale fieldwork projects, produced rich public programs both on-site and online, supported training for researchers of all sorts, provided robust reference services, and, in direct connection to tonight's keynote, built a significant multi-format archive featuring cultural documentation of lived human experience and meaning-making from around the world. To date, our archive holds more than 5 million items, including about 350,000 hours of sound recordings. The Kitchen Sisters collection is a recent acquisition for the center, adding to the rich range of materials, voices, and experiences found in our archive. The center has done its work under 3 librarians of Congress during the course of the past 4.5 decades. I have only been here at the library for 6 years, so I measure my work at the center and the arc of the work I've been involved with as Dr. Hayden time. Dr. Hayden started her tenure as Librarian of Congress just a handful of months before I came on board, and I've had the privilege of supporting the activity of the library and the center as shaped by her vision and strategic goals. I can say with both confidence and honesty that it's been a good ride so far. And now, it's my pleasure to welcome to the podium Dr. Carla Hayden, the 14th Librarian of Congress.
Thank you, Pete. Thank you, John. And I was hearing you say that about Dr. Hayden time. I said, I hope it's not like prison time, you know, but thank you, and thank all of you for being here. When you think about what tonight's event means, it's a wonderful synergy of wonderful projects, the work of the AFC, the Kitchen Sisters. Let's give a hand because you're going to be keeping doing it. The Radio Preservation Task Force. And literally hundreds of media historians and archivists. I got a chance to sit in and just peek today, and the energy that was happening in the library was electric. Bad pun, I know. But it really is wonderful. So I want to thank the people who organized this massive conference. Neil Firma, Northwestern. And Josh Shepard of the University of Colorado. And of course, the staff here at the Library of Congress. It was truly exciting to learn that over 400 people registered to attend. That's something because we, as you know, we are at a time where we're coming out of hibernation. And someone even said it's like butterflies leaving their cocoons. And so we're glad that you are lighting on us. Now, this conference provides a detailed snapshot of what is possible and also what still needs to be done to save our radio heritage. The overwhelming majority of this century of audio history was treated as just ephemeral and no longer survives. Many of you at this conference are helping archivists at the library and other institutions identify what remains and find good homes for these priceless cultural treasures. When I look through the program featuring over 80 panels, we're reminded of the rich influence radio has had on our culture and our everyday lives. Yes, the Kitchen Sisters recently donated their sorry if I get excited, but I am a librarian. Donated their one-of-a-kind collection to the American Folk Life Center with our sincere thank yous, because your collection will be available free of charge to everyone. So thank you. Now that deserves a hand. This is the time that you do use this word. This amazing collection contains over 7,000 hours of audio recordings, along with storybooks, papers, photographs, and so much more. The audio recordings encompass edited and unedited interviews, oral histories, music, archival audio, and the field tapes recorded and collected across 4 decades in nearly, you all don't look like that. In nearly every state in the nation and around the world. The gallery of historical audio formats includes master tapes, reel-to-reel, cassettes. You know, when you get older and you remember when those things came out. It's history. DATs and CDs, as well as a sizable number of born digital files. Scholars and the general public, please stay tuned, because the collection is coming to the library in 4 installments by the spring of 2024 or so, and we have already received 2 of the deliveries. The collection comprises 4 decades of their work, but it's also a revealing record of all of our lives, and our nation is richer for it. Davia and Nikki have had a profound impact on our culture and making people aware of its complex and vibrant diversity. We all know the American Library Association, ALA. Don't we? We do. And in their own right, the Kitchen Sisters belong to another select ALA organization, the newly formed Ambassadors for Libraries and Archives. So thank you again. And now I'd like to introduce our moderator of tonight's program, Dr. Stacey Copeland of Simon Fraser University in lovely British Columbia.
Okay, so that's the first time I've heard Dr. Hayden speak, and I was so surprised how hilarious you are. And also, thank you so much for that lovely introduction. Welcome, everyone. I echo many of the sentiments that have been spoken so far. I'm absolutely overjoyed to be able to introduce to you today the Kitchen Sisters and sit down with them for this lovely, intimate conversation this evening. First off, a thank you to our panel sponsors, the Center of Advanced Research in Global Communication at the Annenberg School of Communication, University of Pennsylvania, and the MA program in Sound Arts and Industries at Northwestern University. Always good to mess up the sponsors' names. And of course, to the Library of Congress for hosting us. So, for those unfamiliar, and I can't imagine anyone in this room is, the Kitchen Sisters are an award-winning radio producer, duo, and audio artists. They are Davia Nelson and Nikki Silva, and they've been creating documentaries and educational projects together since 1979. They are the creators of hundreds of stories for NPR, public broadcast, and podcasts about the lives, histories, art, and rituals of people who have shaped our diverse cultural world. They are the producers of the DuPont Columbia award-winning NPR series, Lost and Found Sounds, The Hidden Kitchens, and 2 Peabody award-winning NPR series, Lost and Found Sounds, and the Sonic Memorial Project with Jay Allison. They are also the producers of The Hidden World of Girls, the NPR series and special hosted by Tina Fey, that explores the lives of girls and the women they become. And The Making of, about what people make in the Bay Area and why, and a production with KQED-N Air. Their current series, The Keepers, possibly some of you in this room involved with that series in one shape or another, a radio, podcast, and social media project, Keeper of the Day, chronicles stories of archivists, activists, rogue librarians, curators, collectors, historians, protectors of the truth, and free flow of information and ideas. They also produce a weekly radio show featuring the work of independent producers on KSQD Santa Cruz 90.7 FM community radio for the Monterey Bay region. The Kitchen Sisters Present podcast, part of the PRX's Radiotopia network, was awarded a 2017 Webby for Best Documentary Podcast. Their NEH-funded series Hidden Kitchens, Kimchi Diplomacy, War and Peace, and Food, heard on NPR's Morning Edition, received a 2017 James Beard Award. Their first book, Hidden Kitchens, Stories, Recipes, and More by NPR's Kitchen Sisters, was a New York Times Notable Book of the Year and was nominated for a James Beard Award. They're currently at work on their second book, Show the Girls the Snakes, The Power of Storytelling, which I can't wait for. And needless to say, I don't know how they make the time to be here. They're very busy, busy women. And so these 2 women, I have to say before I invite them up, are 2 big reasons personally for me. I think Dr. Hayden was speaking to the influence that they've had. They're 2 big reasons why I fell in love with sound work, with radio and podcast work as a producer and a researcher. And I remember vividly the first time listening to the WHER 1000 Beautiful Watts as a young undergraduate media student. Hearing that changed my understanding of what radio and sound work could be. And it opened up the possibilities for me of thinking about more imaginative, more caring approaches to radio production. So please join me in welcoming the Kitchen Sisters.
How many of you heard Dr. Hayden on Morning Edition the other day when they were going on about the new recordings, 25 new recordings that were going into the registry? Jackie Gales Webb did. One of my favorite moments, she was going through all the different recordings that were going to be there, and then the host said, "So what was your favorite?" And she hesitated because, of course, you don't want to diss any of the recordings, but then she said it was Coco Taylor doing Pitch a Wang Dang Doodle all night long, and I thought, this is my kind of Librarian of Congress. Anyway, such an honor to be here. The other thing I was thinking as she was talking, John, you were saying on Hayden time, I was thinking we're on Hayden time and Hammer time here.
Okay, are you both ready to go? Let's jump into, I guess, our first clip, correct?
Let's do it. Sound, let's hear some.
It's so amazing to be in this room. How many of you were here for the event just before us? The Black Women in Radio archive that is coming into the Library of Congress. It was church in here for the last couple of hours as 39 Black women commercial DJs were inducted into a Hall of Fame and their collection being summoned into here. And for us, it's so amazing because the first piece that we wanted to open with is about the first all-girl radio station. Stacey, you just mentioned it, in the nation. Sam Phillips, do people know who Sam Phillips is? Somebody shout out who Sam Phillips is.
Memphis.
What else? Who'd he record?
This is a test.
Need we say more? So he sells Elvis Presley's contract to Colonel Tom Parker, and he took that money and he started the first all-girl radio station in the nation. Memphis, 1955 to 1971, tucked in the third Holiday Inn ever built. So we just thought we'd kick things off with a little bit of a listen. Yeah? The one other thing I'll say, there's been a movement going around the country, probably lots of you know about it, called close listening. Do people know about that? People gather in spaces, bars, churches, city halls, all kinds of rooms like this, and listen together to sound. There's been a lot of that at this conference, but anyway, the joy of that and that kind of what happens when you are communally listening is something we're really looking forward to sharing as we go through these clips today. Getting lipstick on the microphone. Okay, here we go. WHER, 1,000 Beautiful Watts. We forgot to say how we found the story. All right, we'll say afterwards. All right.
Good morning. This is WHER Radio, America's first all-girl radio station, Memphis, Tennessee. WHER 1430 kilocycles with full power of 1,000 watts as authorized by the Federal Communications Commission, Washington, D.C. We cordially invite you to stay tuned to WHER Radio all day, every day.
We signed on October the 29th, 1955. The thing was, nobody knew that we were going to be all girl. Each girl thought she was going to be the only girl on the radio station. Dottie Abbott, who I hired as general manager, I told Dottie, and she almost shouted, "I don't believe you, Sam. I know you're crazy, but you're not that crazy." You know, I mean, she was just beside herself. You were invading man's territory. I mean, you were supposed to be a guest or something if you're going to do anything as a woman on radio.
This is WHER Radio, America's first all-girl radio station for sparkling, bright music.
I'm Becky
all day,
Phillips,
every day.
and I was one of the original WHER girls. At the first, Dottie Abbott was experienced. Marion Keisker was experienced, and I had been in radio. The other girls were mostly new, like Barbara Gurley and Bobby Stout. And
My
Faye
wife, Becky,
Russell.
that's how I met her in radio. We were both kids in high school. Worked part-time at a little station in Alabama, our hometown. I'm Sam Phillips, and I'd wanted a radio station all my life. Radio, to me, it's a living thing.
My name is Betty Berger. My career started in 1956 when I went to work for WHER. Sam's wife, Becky, has a beautiful radio voice. And I think Sam recognized that, thinking, well, what would that sound like? Women playing records and music and talking and saying commercials and doing the news. It's different.
There just weren't many women's voices back then. Maybe some of the radio stations would have one woman who worked there.
WREZ's charming women's reporter, Kitty Kelly.
We have with us in the studio one of the greatest living musicians, and I think one of the great musicians of all time, Mr. Sigmund Romberg. Good morning, Mr. Romberg.
Kitty, you are flattered. Really, I mean, you flatter me very much when you say I'm one of the greatest living composers. Of course I'm living. I love to live.
Wonderful. If you would, we'd like to know a little bit about your outlook on music in this country.
Tell me, did you ever explain to the listening audience that you have a wonderful smile, that you have blonde hair, and you have a red head on now and everything?
No, I didn't.
Why didn't you?
Because I think the people that come to our microphone are much more interesting, and especially you.
But wait a second, darling. I mean, I'm interested in you now. The smile and that twinkle in your eyes. Tell me, Kitty, are you married?
No, I'm not, Mr.
Well,
Romberg.
now, wait a second now. Tell me, Kitty, I mean, how long are you in Memphis now?
Oh, all my life. But if I may say so, if you want to talk about me, I'd like to tell you of a very important part that you and your music played in my life.
Don't rush me, Kitty. Now, how long are you in Memphis?
Well, Mr. Romberg, I've been here quite a long time, but for a few years...
A country dance was being held in a garden. I felt a bump and heard
We were so fortunate to work from such a gold mine of archival audio. The the tape that was available, and actually the music that runs throughout this hour-long piece they're all the albums that were used on the station, and they were saved by Becky Phillips, and we were able to use that music, and it really carried us through the years of the station, which the years of the station were pretty volatile and amazing, and things were changing, and the women's movement and the civil rights movement, and Martin Luther King is assassinated, which completely changes the station. And in the end, the station becomes a mixed station, and it sort of dissolves just as the women's movement is getting off the ground. So the piece really is a mirror to that time and was so wonderful to work on. And the women, they're like our foremothers. That was the other thrilling thing about watching all the Black women in radio, just realizing that those things, those artifacts, those tapes that they're doing now are going to be available to newcomers, just like this material was available to us. So it all comes around.
Listening back to this never gets old for me. It's something new about it every time I listen. And you brought up the quote from Sam to start us off. You kind of glossed over it a little bit. And I feel like it's perfect to come back to it maybe right now. You said, you quote Sam, "Radio to me is a living thing." And I wonder if you could speak to that a bit more now that you are, seeing your work being brought into the archive space. What is it like to see your radio work become this living thing yet again?
The thing that hits me first off is thinking, like as I'm listening, I'm hearing every single one of those women and thinking, and almost all of them have passed by now. There's just a handful of them that are still alive. We tried to do, when the piece aired on NPR, there was all this interest in a film getting made and this happening and that happening, and it went on and on, and it never happened. And Sam called me up one day to just kind of check in as he did. And I was saying, "Oh, Sam, I feel so bad. We're trying to get this movie off the ground, but it just doesn't seem to be happening." "Girl, you're barking up the wrong tree. This thing's a Broadway musical." I was like, "It is?" "Oh, yeah." And Sam, I don't think, had ever seen a Broadway musical. He loved show tunes, and in part he created this station because there he was at Sun Studios recording Elvis. Every one of these women dated Elvis, by the way, and he gave every single one of them a little teddy bear. They all had that. But he created WHER, and he didn't want it to play any Sun Studio music or rock and roll. That was not his goal. He wanted it to be the more easy listening and album rock beautiful music and Broadway show tunes. So when that happened, but you see them when the piece premiered, and Northwest Airlines flew them all from Memphis, and they were on Good Morning America, and we premiered at the Museum of Television and Radio, and we had such a fantasy of the Broadway musical, which hasn't happened yet. But what has happened is it's in the Library of Congress now, all these voices and all these women's families. So to me, radio is a living thing. That's just one example of all of it. And as Nikki said, for example, to have the Black Women's Radio Archive coming in just as our archive's coming in, side saddle, these two groups of people kept off the air for so long, and then someone creates a moment.
I love that. Okay, so moving from present to past, 7,000 plus materials Dr. Hayden was talking about, just the audio alone, not to mention all of the other materials. I'd like to go back. You have a picture pulled up here. Slightly younger, you two. I mean, you're very youthful still today. But could you tell me, how did you meet? How did this all get started?
We both went to the University of California, Santa Cruz, but we didn't know each other then. And after college, I was working at the Santa Cruz City Museum of Natural History, and Davia was doing radio. She started working with the college station, and then migrated over to the community station, where she was doing a show. She was really interested in oral history, and I was doing exhibits. And that's always been the thing, is just storytelling. It just takes so many forms and so many different mediums, but essentially at the heart, it's kind of the same idea, the same thing. And I was interested in oral history. She was interested in oral history. And Davia kept kind of going around town, and every place she'd been, I'd been, and they'd said, well, did you meet this woman? And finally, it took a boyfriend and a mutual friend that knew us both to say, why don't you just go call her up? And Davia called, and she came to the Santa Cruz City Museum, which is just beautiful. It's on the cliff overlooking the Monterey Bay. Got there about sunset, and we stayed like talking until, 9 o'clock at night. And that was sort of the beginning of the beginning. And we headed out doing oral histories together. And I started working on the radio show with her, which was a great radio show, very eclectic.
How many people, ouch, I keep hitting myself in the face. I'm tired. I didn't go to the White House, but those women did, and I'm just feeling their day. How many of you are involved with radio?
Oh, yay.
Okay, so you know what it feels like to program, and so many of our ideas that ultimately came onto national radio, national public radio, all kinds of things, started from this local show that we were doing in Santa Cruz. I think you better explain this next.
So I think we're just going to kind of take you there. This is a clip from a podcast that we did, kind of bringing back to life this early program, War and Separation, that we created early on. And this was one of the first pieces we did for NPR, not the first, but one of the first. And it sort of begins to talk about our interest in recorded sound.
Wow.
Archival sound.
Let's listen. Let's take a listen.
Let's take a listen.
Today on Fugitive Waves, War and Separation. Life on the home front during World War II.
Call from wireless caller.
Most of the time, Davia and I aren't working together in the same room. I live in Santa Cruz and she lives in San Francisco, and our office is in North Beach, and right now she's in LA, so we work a lot by phone.
Hi.
Hi.
Okay.
Okay. So,
Davia and I produced this piece way back.
what do we remember about way back?
1981, 82.
Where my mind just picks up is when your dad gave you the records from the garage, your mother's record collection, this unbelievable stash of 78 that were stored in what was always known as Ernie's Garage, a place of magic and mystery. And as we began being the Kitchen Sisters on the radio, doing our weekly show, he started pulling out records, and we really developed this taste for music from the 40s and the war years. And then suddenly we discovered all these home recordings that people made during the war years, home recorded letters back and forth to each other.
Tucked into these records in these boxes that my dad had stashed in his garage, in between Hoagie Carmichael and Ella Mae Morris and Duke Ellington, we found this heavy black record in a brown paper sleeve, and handwritten in pencil on the record label was "To Louie, Love Mrs. B."
The mysterious Mrs. B, who we have yet to find to this day.
And then it went on to say, "Louie, darling, play this side first." Also in the box, there was a record from my mom. She'd gone down to a radio station in Oakland that was offering to record letters and send them to soldiers overseas. And my dad carried this little red, clear record around with him all through France and brought it back with him. And there it sat in this box of records in the garage for years and years.
That, I think, is what opened our eyes to the world of archival audio, looking in people's attics and basements for home-recorded audio. War and Separation, I think of it as the piece that kind of set us on the course of our radio lives. And it's what in turn would lead 20 years later, whatever it was, to the whole Lost and Found Sound series, our series at the turn of the century, at the millennium, that looked at American life through recorded sound. So that's what I think of with this piece.
So here's War and Separation, life on the home front during World War II.
Oh my gosh. How many archivists in this room have stories where it started with a box in a space, an attic, a basement, perhaps a few of you? I know I have those stories. This just hits so close to, I think, everyone who gets that archive bug.
It was so amazing. You know, there was Ernie's Garage with all this music in it and this, what we have called the Louis letters for years. Mrs. B says to her husband, "Hi, Louis, are you over there? Do they jitterbug over there? Stay out of those pubs and away from those barmaids." Emil says, "We'll ski in 43G, Lou, I hope so." It's all this longing. It's this woman speaking all this. And then it sets Nikki and I on this course of looking for archival audio. And I went back, Nikki and I are in our early 20s at that point. I go back home to my parents. And I tell them, "Oh, Nikki's dad found the Louis letter, and her mom had this recorded letter. And now we've been searching attics and basements and garage sales and estate sales for home recordings." And they listen to me. "Oh, that's so interesting, honey." And then I go into this room at night. They go to bed. And I just start, you know how when you return to your parents' home and you start prowling? You just start opening drawers and looking at the bookshelves in new ways. And I open this drawer, and there are maybe 15 reel-to-reel tapes that say Davia's first words. The FBI is at the door. Davia Crockett. I mean, all these things. And I'm looking, and I talk to my dad in the morning, and I say, "What is this?" And he said, "Oh, yeah, right, I forgot. Oh, yeah, we had a reel-to-reel tape recorder at work, and I would bring it home on the weekends and record everything. It wasn't home movies, it was reel-to-reels. I bring it back to Nikki at the station, and we spool out. You have to know that my parents were leftists, you know, very progressive people, and from the East Coast, moved to LA, and it's the witch hunts are just slightly behind us historically. And we put the first tape on. Nikki and I were listening at night in the recording studio, and you hear my father, the very first tape, and you hear a little baby cooing. You hear the sound of a cooing baby, and you hear my father saying, "Davy, are you now, or have you ever been a baby?" And then you hear my mother say, and she sounds like Mia Farrow in Broadway, Danny Rose, you hear my mother say, "Lenny, stop badgering the witness." And I realized this is how they're getting through, but I also realized in that moment that I had a microphone in my face since birth, basically. I mean, they were acting out Nazi resistance, they were acting out, and then we put a tape on, and you hear my mother say, "Lenny, do you want any pudding?" And I turn to Nikki.
She hates pudding.
And I say to Nikki, "I hate pudding. I hate pudding." And it proceeds to, she serves him pudding, but she screwed it up. And she was cheating, trying to get it to turn into pudding, and she stuck it in the freezer. My dad is so mad at her, and he's critiquing her. And she says, you know, kind of leave me alone. And he says, "Well, you want me to tell you when you do good things, right? I can tell you when you do." And I'm just kind of listening. And I'm there, and then out of the ether you hear Grandma Eva, who's from Russia, "Lenny, stop being such a pill." Anyway, we both wound up with these home recordings that set us on these courses, and I will say that my mother died when I was 5, and so I had not heard her voice since then, and these tapes turned out to be so powerful, I couldn't bring him here to play.
Yeah, really.
How about War and Separation? Let's hear that. This is, we got obsessed with life on the home front during World War II, and you'll hear a lot of home recordings in this little slip of it.
But Steve, this is a young man's war.
Well, I've always considered myself a well-preserved old man.
Oh, stop joking. It's just that I want to hear so much.
I know how you feel, honey, because I feel the same way. But with my training, the Navy needs me. You may not hear from me for some time, but you'll be in my thoughts wherever I am.
With all of us who had to go through that, I imagine that our final relationships were nowhere near what they would have been if we hadn't had to go through the war experience and the separation.
Sacramento, the state capital, reports that the recruiting picture has changed overnight. And from border to border, from Canada to Mexico, draftees who once sought exemption now are clamoring to get into uniform. Word has just come that some 91 Japanese...
Everybody went on with business as usual in the sense that you put in your day and you put in your time, but it was all waiting for the war to end. If not as clearly as that, it was waiting for another letter, waiting for a leave, waiting for a telephone call. There was always something that you were waiting for.
Hello, Louie. This is your wife again. To start off, honey, I want to tell you I love you very much. And, sweet, I do hope you've gotten the other records that I sent over to you. This week I've received no mail from you yet, but I was a lucky gal last week. I got 7. Today I also got a letter from Emil. In his P.S. he said, we ski in 43. I sure hope so. Gee, Lou, I hope so, too.
Hi, baby. Happy Saturday night. Joe Boy just got off KP, so I figures I'll say something to you. Mostly, you know what I want to say, honey, that I love you. And I always keep remembering that, and I hope your mother isn't listening when you play it the first time.
Don't worry about me because I'm all right, and I'll always be all right as long as I know you're going to come home to me.
Already have received funds adequate for their present requirements. Women have invaded another field usually reserved for men. 35 women butcherettes started training today in San Francisco in a step to relieve the shortage caused by the departure of 1,000 male butchers for the armed services. That's the news.
Don't you want to see that unit?
Okay, so War and Separation. Next clips we're moving through, Lost and Found Sounds. This series has just had such a profound impact. Won a Peabody Award. We had numerous panels at this conference that played on this theme as well. It continues to sustain. I mean, what do you have for us? My ears are burning to hear what you've decided to play for us.
Well, so after we found our recordings and we're working on all these stories with recorded sound that we were finding, we did several stories, but when it came time to sort of come back together at the turn of the century, we got a grant and we were looking at the idea of sort of sound over the last 100 years. I mean, where do you even start with that idea? And this idea of
endangered sound, sound on the verge of extinction, people possessed by sound, vanishing voices.
And so this idea of going out and asking for more recordings, asking people to search through their attics and their stereo consoles, that came up, but how would we do that? And we were working with Jay Allison on this idea, and we thought, well, the telephone, let's just ask people. Let's just say it out loud and get it out there. So we opened up a phone line, and we asked people what they had. And the calls rolled in, let me tell you.
Yeah, I would just say this Lost and Found Sound project, about 1,000 people ultimately worked on it with us, and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people called in with telling us about the sound that they thought should be in there. So here's one of the stories, and here it goes.
And Jay Allison is our curator.
9 was received at 5:40 p.m. Friday.
Hello, my name is Henry Cordova. I'm calling about an old record that I have in my possession, a recording of my grandfather's voice. My grandfather was a professional orator, a reader, a lector, as they call them. He read to the cigar workers in Tampa, Florida, while they hand-rolled cigars.
On Friday, January 29th, Henry Cordova was listening to All Things Considered on Miami's WLRN as he drove home from work. I'm Jay Allison, curator of the Quest for Sound, and on that broadcast, I asked people to call in with stories of their home recordings of the last 100 years.
Hello, Blanche, Frank.
Henry did.
Oye, esta es Marina, como dices tú. Oye, Blanche.
That's his grandmother, Marina. Inspired by Henry's message, producers Davia Nelson and Nikki Silva, the Kitchen Sisters, began to explore the cigar culture of Southern Florida, drawing on the legacy of audio artifacts, oral histories, and memories. of this lost tradition of story and smoke.
Listen, friends, I would like to see you again very soon.
Our narrator is actor Andy Garcia.
Cigar Stories. El lector, he who reads.
My grandfather came to Key West, got a job as a reader in the cigar factories. The Cuban cigar industry had moved to Key West to escape political troubles in Cuba during the Spanish-American War. Later went to the Spanish part of Tampa called Ybor City, which was named after Martinez Ybor, a Cuban tobacco mogul. The height of the industry, there were about 100 cigar factories, each employing several hundred people. So there was a lot of market for professional readers. And if a man had a good voice and a good selection of material, he would get fans and he'd be in high demand.
The lectures began in Sevilla. In order for a worker to sit there and roll a cigar, which is really a monotonous task, something had to be done to entertain them. They brought on a man to read. When you finish making a cigar, you put the wrapper on it. It's really a delicate thing that makes or breaks a cigar. And the glue that the women in Sevilla used was the sweat of their thighs. It was very hot in the factories, and they were sweaty. When the leaf came to the final wrapping, they would rub it on the inside of their thigh. That would cause it to stick.
I went to work when I was 15. It was 1924, Tampa.
Cigar roller, Eugenia Prede.
I made 150 cigars a day. When summer came, we were hot. We sweated like pigs. I worked by hand for at least 30 years. And we had an hour and a half in the morning of lecture. They talked of everything that happened in the world. Whenever there was a good article anywhere, they would come and read it to us.
So Cigar Stories was 1999?
Yes.
So moving from here, you know, Lost and Found Sounds, award-winning. I think we all have a familiarity with what came next in the years to come. You know, 2000 and then 2001 brought a major shift in America and really across the globe. I remember watching 9/11 events on TV in my classroom. Tell us about where this then took the Kitchen Sisters series.
Well, we were working on the series, and like Davia was saying, we had this huge national collaboration. You know, lots and lots of producers were working on stories, and they were airing on NPR and much longer than we had ever anticipated. And we were all working on stories, working away, and then 9/11 happened. And it was just like, I'm sure everyone who experienced that had the same feeling. We were just frozen. You know, like, how can you continue doing what you're doing? I mean, we have to, what are we going to do? And we had this incredible, you know, group of people, and we sort of just turned the lens towards the history of Lower Manhattan and the building of the towers and the history of that neighborhood as a way of paying tribute and understanding more about what happened and about the place. And also there's this thing about, I mean, I kind of remember this feeling when we were working on the piece, do we go to that moment when the airplanes hit? I mean, do we want to go there? Because everyone was going there, you know, and we saw it thousands of times. But just trying to figure out how do we tell this story in a way that isn't being just bombarded at everyone, you know, constantly on the news, in a way that's not taking us any deeper or any place new. And so
the piece we were working on September 8th, 9th that year was a piece called The Acoustics of Crime, Privacy, Get Over It. And we had been going around working on a story on solving crime through sound. And it had come out of the Lost and Found Sound series because there had been a guy at the Lincoln Center Library of Recorded Sound who had pieced together these, the Mapleson cylinders, which were from the Metropolitan Opera at the turn of the century. The article had been in the paper about the amazing, astounding work he'd done, and the police had called him and they said, whatever they're paying you, we're gonna pay you so much more. Come solve crime with sound with us. And so we had been interviewing him. We'd come to the FBI and looked at all the kind of sound ways anyway. So the there we are working on that piece on a day when everyone said, my privacy, I don't care. Take my privacy. Find these people, take my privacy, it's over. Those tapes are going to be in the Library of Congress if any of you want to finish that piece for us. It's on the to-do list. But anyway, what happened was we activated the collaboration and looked at this this hallowed ground for 100 years, this neighborhood of Lower Manhattan. And Jamie York we collaborated with Jamie York on this piece called Walking High Steel. Yeah, it is a Charlie Traub, exactly. No, that's okay, it's a Charlie Traub photograph, exactly. It's called Walking High Steel, and it's about Mohawk iron workers at the trade towers. And keep in mind that the music you're hearing in this story comes from the station on the reservation in Montreal near Montreal of the Mohawks. They gave us all this sound that you're going to hear.
It's 3 right now outside our studios. That's the way it's going to be for the next couple of days or so. Don't forget Radio Bingo tonight, $10,000.
Tehnika, Kalona. They get at the Twin Towers. The Twin Towers, they're twins. Tehnika, that's a Mohawk. I'm a Burke clan, huh? We go clan. Bill O'Hara Oaks from Akwesasne. Yeah, when I work on a World Trade Center, that was the year of 69. I was working up in New Jersey. You can see it from there, the tower was going up. They told me it's going to go up to 110 floors, huh? I said, I want to get on that building.
Saturday night, 8 o'clock. The Gunawaga Mohawk senior lacrosse team get back in action once again.
Walter Bova, you're in the Gunawaga Indian Reserve. 99% of the reservation are iron workers. My brother was. Yeah, my whole family was at one time. One of the elders takes you under their wing. You know, you got to learn how to crawl before you can walk.
My name's Pete LaFleur, and I worked in the World Trade Center in 1969 and 70. I was a connector of steel. My mother's brother was a great iron worker. My grandfather worked on the Empire State Building. He worked in Brazil, he worked in France, San Francisco Bay Bridge. Weekends when they came home, you sat around in the family, and that's all they all talked about. It's all you heard, all your life. When you started working yourself, you could almost do the job because you were talking so much about it when you were a kid.
My name's Randy Horn. I've been an iron worker for 33 years. The Trade Center was the most time I ever spent with my father, one-on-one. I never really knew him. He was always away, providing for his family. I learned to know him on the job. My father put me in the gang, start bolting up right away.
I was on the North Tower. North Tower started first. I was a pusher, foreman. It's like a band leader. What pieces go where, A, B, C, and so forth. I'll forget I was on that job, about 10 years, and came back and put up the antenna. I had my son with me, and it was one of his first jobs. And up about 3/4 of the way up the antenna is a catwalk. So I got my son over there. Everything was all right. Everything was foggy. All of a sudden, a damn fog lift. Now he's looking down. He sees cars about this big. I know one thing, that building on a good windy day, when you come off that thing, you feel like a drunken sailor.
The height didn't even bother me at the time. I could go 120 at the time. You think twice now when you're walking on the steel. Walking on the steel with the wind, if you get some gusts, it could throw you right off. And all of a sudden the wind picks up and you just try to balance yourself. You would have to jump from the top of the beam and into the bottom of the beam and grab the top and hold on. They call it coon. You got to coon it. All of a sudden the wind gets you, then you jump and you crouch down and you grab the flanges of the beam so you won't fall off. Then when the wind dies down, you get back up and keep going.
I was daring, and that's a daring job. Because when you're walking a girder, the wind is blowing, say, from the north. Now you're leaning into it. All of a sudden the wind stops you, keep on going. Could you imagine?
You're in a new space in New York City. You're kind of in this air that nobody has ever been there before.
On the B tower, we were losing time, $50 extra a week just to stay up there. We have to bring our own sandwiches. We used to carry our own tents with us, lean-tos, whatever we needed, and our own heaters in the winter.
You know, one of the things I appreciate most about your work is the careful way that it approaches, you know, major events, major historical events like 9/11 with such care, and in ways that really bring the human, sometimes unexpected stories into that tribute. I mean, could you tell us a little bit more about this particular episode?
Yes, it's remarkable because you just learn so much about the community these essentially they would spend their weeks in Brooklyn. There's a whole neighborhood in Brooklyn where everybody stayed, and then they'd drive back on the weekends, Friday night, and stay on the reservation up by the, you probably know more about where exactly it is, up at the border of Canada. And
we have some folks closer to Montreal in the audience as well, if anyone's curious
good.
later.
You know, Canada.
Canada, you've heard of it. Anyway, these guys would drive, and there's this beautiful sequence where the woman describes, cooking for them and exactly what they like to eat, and then the music changes and they have to drive back on Sunday night. And it's just like this heartbreaking thing. They're quiet in the car. On Friday, they're all laughing and excited, and on Sunday, they're just driving back, and they're kind of caught up in what's going to be happening during the week. And then this piece takes us through to the nephews and sons of the guys who built the towers, and those nephews and sons come to take down the rubble after the towers have fallen. So it's this circle.
I think one of the things that struck me too, Jamie had gone up and recorded a lot of the people that you hear in the story, and he had gone to the local radio station on the reservation, as you said, and we asked Jamie to ask them, will they let us have their playlists of those 2 weeks from the moment the word goes out on the morning of 9/11 and then what's on the air. And so everything, we scored the entire piece with only music that they had played. And it amazed us how much they played Miles Davis on the res that week. Yeah, I'll also say yesterday we were on a panel about Tony Schwartz. Does everyone in here know about Tony Schwartz? Agoraphobic man, rarely left his postal zone in New York, from the 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s. His collection is in the Recorded Sound Division here. And it's the centenary of his birth. So we were on a panel because he was one of the people possessed by sound that we interviewed for Lost and Found Sound. His children came in. Andy from Andy Lancet, the amazing archivist of WNYC, and Matt Barton from Recorded Sound. We were all on a panel, plus people who'd worked with Tony. In the transcript from the 1998 interview Nikki and I did, I was reading it right before we went on the panel, and Tony was describing who's living near him, and he said, oh, well, there used to be, that's different now, but it used to be a lot of Mohawk iron workers living right down the street from me, and that was in the 60s. So seeing how that community was moving around.
And the radio station on the reservation was this way the guys would call in, like on the top of the buildings they were working on, and they would call in and they'd do over the air, they'd give messages. And so during, when 9/11, there was just a lot of fear and a lot of information going back and forth about who was where and who was safe. And so the radio station was this real, link between the communities.
Radio to me is a living thing.
Keeps coming back. And of course, after the Sonic Memorial Project. I have it pulled up here. Davey, we see one of, I think, my personal favorite Kitchen Sisters series. That's the Hidden Kitchen series. I'm a big foodie. My wife's a chef, bonus points. And this isn't your typical culinary storytelling, though. Could you tell us a bit about the clip you've chosen for us today?
Yeah, well, going back to that idea of opening up a phone line for each of the series and asking people, we were looking for hidden kitchens, secret, unexpected, below the radar cooking, how communities come together through food. And we said to the nation, Jay again did the beckoning on, this series was on Morning Edition, asking people to call in and tell us about it. And so the piece starts with one of those messages, and it sent us off in a direction we never would have expected. And it, I think, was the first piece we played in the series on Morning Edition. Here we go.
Message 23 was received at 1:10 p.m. today.
I'm Margaret Engel, a woman who works for Legal Aid, who's talking to me about how many of her clients get dinner. The people who struggle to even get food on the table because they don't have an official kitchen and who are using George Foreman grills and the like. The George Foreman grill has been an amazing success story as a kitchen appliance, but what I think many people don't realize is that immigrants and low-income people have contributed to that popularity. That is, to me, the epitome of the hidden kitchen.
Wow, what a wonderful story. I'd never considered it at all. I'm George Foreman, two-time heavyweight champion of the world, former Olympic champion, and king of the grills. Growing up in Houston, Texas, my whole life was spent trying to get enough to eat. Having 7 kids, my mother did, and there just was never enough food for me. I always dreamed about not a car, not a beautiful home, but enough to eat.
My name Piggly Wiggly. I've got groceries on my shelf.
My name is Jeffrey Newton, Chicago. I'm a great cook, a trait that I had learned from my grandmother, but I just haven't had a kitchen. I'm living in a shelter at this particular time, but I've been homeless all my life. I lived under Wacker Drive, where the expressway goes through, and there's about 30 or 40 refrigerator boxes down there. That's gonna be your home. I would get the George Foreman grill. That's the grill that I had for a while under Wacker Drive, me and a fella by the name of Smokey. So you just get your long extension cord. They got a lot of electrical plugs on the poles down there, and just hook up. We was making hamburgers and grilled cheese sandwiches, because we used to take an iron and do that too. Press down, you know, your bread and your cheese.
My name is Pat Sherman, and I'm the program coordinator of the Walk-In Center here at Glide, San Francisco. When I was in the single room occupancies, I couldn't cook in my room. Well, legally I couldn't. I'd get me a big bowl, put me some ice in it, and voila, that became my refrigerator. Microwaves, toaster ovens, hidden under the bed or in the closet. The George Foreman grill, that's the newest thing. Doesn't set off the smoke detectors. And since they come in colors, you know, it just looks like you're getting real fancy in your room and decorating. And it looks like you have a nice tabletop to the visible eye, but you know it's your kitchen.
It's a special TV offer from the king of the grill, George Foreman.
My lean, mean, fat-reducing grilling machine.
I grew up in Houston, Texas, in the Fifth Ward area. Every day at lunch during the summer days, you hear the parents call the kids in. They would just tell me, okay, go home and eat your lunch. And these people knew I had no food at home. And I'd peep through the window at the kids eating, and the parents would peel the crust off the bread, and I would sit there and just hope they would just throw that out the window for me. Going to school, you go through the lunch line, 26 cents. I couldn't afford that. And I'd sit at the table, and it was so embarrassing. So what I would do, I'd get a greasy bag, blow it up on the way to school to make it look like there was a sandwich in it. Then I'd get to my classroom and say, boy, I ate my lunch. And I learned to disguise my not having food.
When you're homeless, you have to find out all these things, you know. It's called trailblazing. You got to blaze the trail.
This, I have to say that the Hidden Kitchen series was a real reaction to the Sonic Memorial Project. I mean, we were so overwhelmed for a year with those stories, and food just seemed to be this way to sort of talk about people coming together and finding some common ground, or some way to talk about, peace and, family and home and hope. So I think that's one of the things that really led us to food. That and Davia's cab drives, that she hates to drive, and found herself in cabs with cab drivers who took her to a hidden kitchen in a cab yard, and that was sort of the beginning of that series.
Yeah, we're always looking, I think, in our pieces for, it's such a divided world, it's such a conflicted world, and I think part of what we hope is underneath all our stories is a path towards each other. What do we have in common as a species? We all eat, there's music, there are rituals that bind us, we have a connection to the earth. People raise children, they fall in love. There's so many ways to be apart, but I think our pieces are seeking the common ground, and food, music, all these things, even sound. When we were doing the Hidden Kitchen series, we realized we had a saying, what is it about men and meat and midnight and a pit? And we realized if we had, drones weren't invented, at least we didn't know about them. And then I always used to have this image of like, you could be in a low-flying plane going around the world all at night, and you would just see these fires springing up all around the world in all these different cultures, because so many cultures were roasting a pig for some ceremonial reason. A baby was born, it was a holiday, it was a feast day. Anyway, a lot that series was trying to get underneath the skin of that through food.
And this piece, the George Foreman piece, ends with George Foreman, opening up these sports centers for kids. And he, after he retires, and he says, yeah, they can do sports, but the most important thing is that they get a meal, that they're not hungry. I don't want them to be hungry. And so it's just this very beautiful. He was such a great interview. I mean, it was one of those interviews where you could just play the whole thing and not even think about cutting it. He's a great storyteller.
Food and storytelling, that's really what brings us all together, isn't it?
I want to say a few things, just cutting off the schedule here. I got to thank the sound crew of this whole conference, but especially in this room, who we have hovered with for the last, 48 hours. We always love the sound people. We feel like there are people, and the Library of Congress sound people are the best, the best, the best. And Alejandro and Clay, is Brittany there too? All of you all have just been, David yesterday, have just been, and we've been such nervous Nellies, like, can you make it go this way? And we're going to change our slides. So thank you. And once again, and all there, anyway. And Neil, we got to thank you so much for creating this conference, for asking us to collaborate with Stacy. I just don't want us to forget to do it. I just want to ask logistics. Are we going to 7?
What time is it now? We're little.
It's what's
1:45.
Okay.
It's 1:45. Are you saying that?
Is that
7 is our time we're supposed to go to, right? Okay, I don't want to go too long. Okay, so we are going to whiz through because we have about 20 more hours of sound to play. We're only in 2005,
we always have
people.
spare things at the end.
Trust us that we have commandments of storytelling with all kinds of sayings. Here's a few of them.
Say everything out loud.
These are principles. Collaboration is queen, don't you think? Summon the elders. They're behind so much of our work.
All right, yes, let's speed ahead then. Fast forward now to The Keepers, which instead of talking about finding stories in the archive, you're turning it onto archivists.
And this series came out of the 2016 election. And we had, from Lost and Found Sound, we had a saying, we've always relied on the kindness of archivists, because that series could not have been created without the help of hundreds of archivists in this country and others. And we'd meant to do the series about archivists right after Lost and Found Sound. We were moving into that series, and then as we said, 9/11 happened and we wound up in the Sonic Memorial. And then when the election of 2016 and when facts suddenly were in such question and when truth was in such question, and we went and back and we suddenly saw librarians and archivists standing up for history, for truth, for information, and that's what triggered this series.
And you've pulled up the first episode here. I think, we have some archivists, folks who've worked in archives in the audience, but I think what the general public thinks about archives, they might think of, dusty old books and boxes somewhere in a, very stagnant, sterile space. But this really pushes back against that idea of archives. You tell us a little bit about this clip?
Maybe we'll just push back.
Every art form has their standards that they've placed in the canon. Mathematics, science, everybody has their grades, and somebody placed them there. People in visual art world say, hey, okay, this is what's going in the Louvre. This is it. And I think hip hop needs the same thing. This is the archive.
Archiving the underground is what we do. The Hip Hop Archive began at UCLA, late 90s. I taught urban speech communities there. Students said, we want to do work on hip hop. I said, that's performance, but it's not a speech community. They said, we'll be back. They came back with the most amazing projects. They showed the elements of hip hop, rapping, MCing, poetry or rhyming, b-boy, b-girl dance, and graffiti art, and what it meant to their lives. I'm Marcelina Morgan, founding director of the Hip Hop Archive and professor of African and African American Studies at Harvard University. My students, when they were graduating, would say, I collected this. This is from hip hop.
Boombox.
You have to keep it.
Turntable.
I'm a linguistic anthropologist. Anthropologists love material culture.
Adidas.
I couldn't throw it away.
Spray paint they use with graffiti.
So I started having all this stuff. Then all these students were like, well, I think it should be called an archive because an archive is important.
Pieces of hip hop history.
I remember when Marcy shared her idea with me, and I thought, oh my God, I'm no fan of hip hop. But you didn't have to be Albert Einstein to realize that this was a brilliant idea, the world's first archive of the hip hop and rap movement. Imagine if someone had thought of this when jazz was at its zenith. Why don't we have the Jazz Archive at Harvard? Of course, it would have been turned down, but in retrospect, they would have been a genius. I'm Henry Louis Gates Jr., professor at Harvard, director of the Hutchins Center for African and African American Research.
Why hip hop at Harvard?
I love that he says, of course it would have been turned down.
Well, I hate to do what I'm about to do. I'm just going to blast. We have a very scintillating section on keepers, and so many of you in this room are, but I'm just going to blast
You'll
through
be
it.
able to hear all these things now.
Yeah, they're in the archive. At the Library of Congress, American Folklife Center. Jesse Hawkins, stand up. Is John
Yes,
Fenn
Jesse.
still here? Is anyone else?
Yay.
Who works at the Library of Congress? Stand up, all of you all. Thank you. Yeah. Okay, so Keeper of the Day, trust us. Well, here you can read. This was on the occasion of the 90th Keeper of the Day. We did for a year, calling out keepers all around the country. Is the woman from Radio Haiti Archive here? Yeah.
Yay.
Called in. Look, we're coming to you.
This was this idea, too, of pushing out little bits.
Hi,
And
my name is Haley. I'm
sorry, Haley. Later. Sorry, Henry.
Henry, sorry.
Sorry, Brenda.
Oh, Brenda?
Yeah, we're just going there, kind of. No, we don't. Sorry, Emma. Radio Haiti.
Yeah.
Okay, here we are.
So these were social media posts that we were putting out regularly, Keeper of the Day, and we put out a call. A lot of things didn't come in through the phone this time, but through the internet, we got lots of people saying, oh, this person's got to be, honored, and that's what that was about. Okay,
Keep it
hurry,
moving,
hurry.
honey. Okay, the Accidental Archive.
We'll just blast through these.
These are some of the things in the archive, quickly.
A lot of stuff.
Buffalo Breath, Rising, tapes. Sinval Silva, Carmen Miranda's chauffeur and the composer of one of her best songs.
Led Inglesman, Love of Our Lives, the cowboy.
Directions to the Poodle Dog Lounge, Texas.
The Yankton Sioux coming of age ceremony in South Dakota.
Traveler Girls in Ireland, the gypsy traveler culture.
Burgoo, traveling around in a car.
Production, no.
Trying to find our way. Martha Stewart.
Had to. Shrimp.
Recording shrimp. Or equipment.
We have this saying, our microphone is a stethoscope listening to the complicated heart of the nation. That's what it feels like with the headphones on, pointing it at the heartbeat, at the heartbreak, the voices. It's just kind of one of our ways of thinking about it. One of a story we love, but we're going to jump because we're in the last 5 minutes, but we won't end with this story, but this is the most recent story that just went up on our podcast. The Kitchen Sisters present, not this story, but
my name is Mary Ruth Schuler Dieter.
No, but
I'm 97 years old.
Hear her voice.
We traveled on the horses, riding down in the mountains of Kentucky, very poor country. I was delivering books to the children. Pack Force Librarian. That was one of the works of President Roosevelt.
Our problem is to put...
Sorry, President Roosevelt. Okay, so this is called House Full of Black Women, and it is a collaboration between the Kitchen Sisters, Ella Sebastian Chang, Sital Banat Mukhtari, who has been mentoring with us, young journalists from Africa. This is her first work from Nigeria, and 34 Black women in Oakland, California. So here's a little.
And it's an Oakland-based group. They've
intro.
I don't think there is. Is there? I don't think there is. There may or may not be an intro.
Okay. Oh no.
Go ahead. See if
there's no intro.
Let the work speak.
It happened on.
She's right. There's no intro. Hit it, Nick.
So. 34 Black women came together in Oakland in this house once a month, and they
over the last 8 years.
Over the last 8 years, and they came together for many reasons, but and they put together these performances.
But for fighting gentrification, eviction, well-being, and sex trafficking.
And they did this through performance and parking lots, surprise pop-up things, processions down the street, that unexpected they wouldn't get permission for, and just go out into the community. And so they have amassed these episodes, and this piece, it's an hour-long piece, and it sort of follows the history of these women coming together and sort of fighting this fight in Oakland. And this is, I think, one of the episodes.
I think it's the first episode of 15 that they did over the course of 8 years. House Full of Black Women.
It happened on 17th Street, this short block, Franklin and Webster.
Fall 2015, Oakland, California.
In this small storefront, Regina's Door, that has vintage clothing in it. There's a majestic oak in front of Regina's Door that Regina named Elsa, and would dress this oak tree with ribbons and fabric. She had clothes almost floating in the air on the walls, and some hanging from the ceilings, draped over trunks. She uses her store as a place survivors of sex trafficking can come to be surrounded with beauty and safety.
Episode 1, We are here to stay.
Amara is there in this antique white dress, veiled with lace, jumping up and down as Tossie Long is singing so loudly. And Colette Eloy is there with a horse tail that she's waving. Amara has an incredible straw broom and she's sweeping the streets. Magically, the cars just stop and wait. The energy of the women just willed there to be no traffic. People knew this shouldn't be interfered with.
Regina's door.
Regina's door was 465 square feet in Oakland. My name is Regina Evans. I built out a vintage store because I had a vintage store in Australia. I was like, well, I know how to do that. I really didn't have any community in Oakland. I hadn't lived in Oakland since I was 17. I didn't have enough money to buy racks, all the basic stuff. So I put everything on the wall. That's how I opened it. It was beautiful. I used that store to support young survivors of trafficking. By that time, I had volunteered with probably 4 anti-trafficking organizations. Then I was also going out on the track by myself and building altars. The track, the Glade, is an area in usually an urban city where girls and boys are being trafficked, sold into rape. In Oakland, it is what used to be East 14th, this International Boulevard.
Oakland is the West Coast hub for sex trafficking in the United States, and 70% of those who are being trafficked are from Oakland or in surrounding areas.
I was building altars on the corners because that was the thing I could do so that I wouldn't get the girls in trouble because the pimps would be right there. So I'd just get a whole bunch of stuff and flowers and candy, put cards in it and build altars on the corner. I put signs all up and down the track saying, I see you, I love you, you're beloved. Signed the Queendom, and it was like me. But I was like, everybody, we all love you. It was just me, but you know what I'm saying. And I would talk to them. Listen, this is for you. I don't want to get you in trouble. And I'm just like looking like a crazy person, talking to the altar. And then I would tell them quickly, here's where I am, blah, blah, blah. Look for the decorated tree. Because I would decorate a tree, Majestic Elsa. And the community thought it was me beautifying it, but it was a marker for the girls. It was a hideout for girls. 2015, Ellen came to Regina's store. They needed an anti-trafficking entity.
Regina was so welcoming and open, and Regina's like, okay, I don't know what exactly is happening here, but come on in.
I saw all these beautiful black women, and they were all creative. They wanted to do some work with trafficking, so I was like, cool, let's go.
The first episode was truly a declaration to say, we are here to stay.
I had no idea what was going on. Somebody's singing, somebody's jumping. Everybody's really beautiful and nicely dressed, and you could feel the energy. And then it went outside in the street. Robbie Sweeney was taking these pictures, and I just didn't know what was going on. And then I figured it out.
At a time of rampant displacement of Black and brown folks in Oakland, it was really our first ritual to put our stakes in the ground and say, we're not leaving. We're not leaving.
Radio is a living thing, and your accidental archive has become a living thing. Your work, your latest work, continues to speak back to the body of work that's now being housed here at the Library of Congress. Maybe a last question to end things off for you two. What does it mean to both of you to see your past body of work, the Kitchen Sisters, really a story of the nation through your microphones enter the Library of Congress.
It's so huge. I mean, really. I mean, it's like out of body. It's like it's not really happening to us, but we're so proud. And the thing that makes me, I think, the most proud is just to think that all those people that trusted us enough to give the stories, that their stories are going to be here. And wow, what a wonderful thing is that.
Davia?
I'll start crying. I think about, we have a piece called French Manicure, Tales from Vietnamese Nail Salons in America. And it was a lot about how the consequences of the Vietnam War were manicuring in the United States. And I think about all those women and their children, and I have this image of them coming to the Library of Congress and finding their stories here. That kind of is what hits me. I also see Nikki and I in 1979 jumping on an airplane from San Francisco and coming to the Library of Congress after we found the Louis letter and combing through the archives here and looking for all manner of recorded sound that then fed into our stories across all these decades. So it's very full circle for me, the thought that our collection would go public domain in the way that we had access to all this other material, the wheel within a wheel within a wheel.
Yeah. Can we end on the lullaby, please? We just bring it up a notch here.
We were.
Can you get back to?
Yeah, we were just thinking about that we hadn't played anything that was just raw, just not a produced recording. And Nikki and I, back from the late 70s, started recording lullabies, asking everybody we interviewed to sing a lullaby for us. And so we decided to add one. I recorded it in 1983 on a beach in Jamaica. Went to Jamaica and was interviewing this man and asked him if he knew any lullabies. Whoopsie, that's not it.
Hush, baby, hush. Mama gonna market fi buy Coca-Cola. Hush, lady, hush. Say, Mama gonna market fi buy Coca-Cola. Papa gonna bush fi go look the wood. So Mama soon come with sweet, sweet candy. Mama soon come with the sweet, sweet candy. Hush, baby, hush. Pass the nipple back and let me give you feeding. So hush, lady, hush. So give me a little bottle, let me give you the feeding. So hush, baby, hush, So Mama gonna market me buy Coca-Cola. Papa gonna bush, we go look up the wood. Catch up the fire, put on the pot. Till Mama come back, your belly will be full. So hush, baby, hush. Mama gonna market. Hush, lady, hush.
I love that he's going to be here in this place.
Herbert. And maybe just Jamaican singers will dedicate this panel to Harry Belafonte. Thank you guys so much. Thank you, Stacy. Thank you, Library of Congress. Thank you, Neil, Radio Task Force.
The Kitchen Sisters.